What's going on, YouTube? Today's video, as you guys can tell by the title of this video, giving you guys a bit of a whip tutorial. Now, I've done a few of these in the past prior to me kind of reaching the level that I'm at now and gaining more and more knowledge about whips. So I felt it was only right to kind of come out and make a brand new tutorial for you guys, kind of update it, give you guys some more tips and tricks and pass my knowledge along. As you guys can tell, I am on the Stark Varg this time. I'm not on the 450 like I was in the very first video. And obviously, as you guys have seen over the past year or so, these are the bikes to have if you want to learn really big whips. So this is my weapon of choice for today. I'll get into like the physics of why this is the best bike to whip on. But for now, we're gonna dive straight in and I'm kind of gonna take you guys on like a little step-by-step to learning how to whip.
Okay, so first things first, you're gonna want to find a good jump. I've got a really nice, perfectly prepped double right here. I believe this thing's 100 feet, somewhere in there. It's a little over 100, right? Obviously, not a lot of people are gonna have access to a jump that big, but the same rule applies for basically every single jump. And first things first, you're gonna wanna get set up. So I'll hop on my bike here in a second and kind of show you guys my setup process to whip. But like I'm saying, it all starts with the setup. So I've got a jump right here that I'm gonna be landing on kind of the middle to my right on, and that's gonna set me up. I'm gonna whip to what I call the right, which is my right hand. My right hand goes down. So I'm gonna wanna set up for the carve. Step one would be the carve. I'll land off this jump a little bit to the right and kind of already set up like I'm going to carve and almost want to like jump off of the side of this jump. So I'll be probably setting up, land on the right, aim, and kind of start making an S shape going up the jump. And you'll see once I get a line developed here, you'll see what I'm talking about. And you'll see in the slow-mo footage here. But step one is getting the carve and getting the angle right off of the jump. Obviously, most people watching this are going to be doing this at a motocross track or trying to learn it on a motocross track. So you're not going to have jumps this big, but the same rule applies to basically every single jump. That was my first jump of the day, by the way, so I'm not warmed up or anything. So we'll hit this a few times and I'll kind of get a line going to show you guys like the setup process and how you have to kind of carve to get the momentum started for the rear wheel and kind of chuck that rear wheel out. And my settings on the Varg, for those who are wondering, I'm at 55 horsepower. It's 0% regen. You want, if you're on a Stark, you're gonna want the regen at 0 because you want the rear wheel to spin as fastly and freely as possible, because that's how a whip works. It's all from the angular momentum and the rear wheel spinning speed. The faster rear wheel spins, the lighter the bike's gonna feel, the easier it is to whip. So as you guys can kind of tell, and I'll slow it down in the footage and talk to you guys, but I create like an S shape. I kind of move back and forth right on the lip, and I try to time it to where I'm going and I'm leaning the way I want to lean, and I have that momentum from my body moving, and I'm leaning the way I want to lean right at the lip. I'm sitting down. This is for seat balance whips, obviously. I'm sitting down, I'm leaning the way I want to whip, and the momentum from me moving and I'm pulling back and the carve starts the rotation of the whip. So we'll do it one more time here, give you guys a little bit more of a clear view of what I'm doing.
Okay, so that's step one.
And as you guys can see, I have a little S line starting to form here. So what I'm doing is I'm setting up way beforehand. I'm not waiting until I get in the air to start the whip. I'm setting up way beforehand and kind of getting like a little motion going and a little momentum with my body. And right at the lip, right when I get the carve started, I start to lean the way I want to, you know, drop my inside shoulder. I'm leaning that way and I'm pulling back, almost like you're in a rowing motion. I'm pulling back to get the front end up. So step 2 would be to pull back at the lip once you're leaning the way you want to lean. Pull back at the lip, get the front end up, because that's how you want to whip. You don't want to whip like sideways, because that's going to just drop the front end and you're going to end up. You really want to get that front end up as much as you possibly can. And the steeper the jump is, the easier it is to do. That's why you see these gnarly whips on like the freestyle ramps or the next gen freestyle ramps, because they're so steep. You can really get the front end up to get under it. But once you get the lean down and the carve down, you get to the lip and you're going to want to pull. But I get the momentum going right at the lip. I lean back and I'm pulling, basically like you're not trying to do a back foot, but you're trying to just get that front end up. We'll give you a little bit bigger of a whip here, and I'll kind of give you guys a little bit more to visualize and look at. Okay, so there's a little bit bigger of a whip. As you guys can tell, I'm going up the lip, doing my carving motion. I'm following the same exact line as before. I'm leaning back, dropping this inside shoulder and using the momentum, kind of like you're pulling on a rowing machine, doing like this, pull. I use the momentum from my body. I'm at the top of the lip, leaning back, drop the inside shoulder, pulling and trying to get that front end up as high as you can. Sometimes it's difficult to get that front end up, and sometimes you just miss the timing of the pull. So it's really difficult to get it consistently. But you guys can see how I went up the lip. I timed my pull pretty good. I got that front end up. That basically walks you through step 2.
Okay, now that we've walked through step 1 and step 2, you're basically at the point where you're up in the air, your front end's up, you're leaning, and you're starting to kind of like rotate inward. Now, the biggest part of the whip and what makes it look either really cool or really sketchy is throwing the bars down and kind of like kicking your feet simultaneously. That's step 3, is timing, pull back and pulling the bars down and kicking the feet out. I don't really know what to call that. I don't really know how to compare that to any other movement in the world, but it's kind of like you're on a rowing machine and you're pulling back. You know, if you go to the gym, you row a lot, you're pretty used to that motion, but you're pulling back and down to one side and you're kicking your feet out like you're trying to throw the rear end as far away from you as possible. Now, the bigger and more upside down you get, the harder that gets, because physics start to feel a little wonky. But off of a basic dirt jump, it's basically all the same. But once you get that front end up, you're gonna really wanna crack the bars down and kick your feet out simultaneously. And that'll basically be the peak part of your whip. So we'll go ahead, I'll show you guys a little bit of slow-mo of that, and I'll talk you through that.
For step 3 here, we'll be focusing on pulling the bars back and kicking your feet out all at the same time. And that's really what makes or breaks the whip, is how smooth you can get that transition without making your body look like it's too jerky or you're trying too hard. And it's really the part of the whip that takes the most practice, in my opinion. But I'll give you guys a good example right here and we'll talk about it. So you saw right there, I drew the bars basically into my lap and I'm kicking my feet out, kind of like you're jumping backwards or you're on a rowing machine and you're pulling back. It's basically all the same motion, but what you're doing is you're taking it from having the front end up to throwing the front end down and throwing the rear end up all at the same time, which is what creates that whip, right? If you were to just stop at step 2, you'd basically just be doing like a weird turn up and it just come back all weird. So I'll give you guys another visual here, kind of show you what I'm talking about. So we even went a little long on that one, but you can get a visual of what's going on and kind of compute the two together.
Okay, so now that we got to the point of pulling the bars back, kicking the feet out, kind of get that rear end to chuck out a little bit and create that whip. You're gonna wanna bring it back so you don't land sideways, right? So step 4 is gonna be picking the bars back up and kind of bringing that whip back. So how you do that is, once you're at the point of the height of your whip, the peak of your whip, and you wanna bring it back, come back for a nice straight landing. It's basically kind of like picking your bike up off of the ground. It's the same motion. You You take the bars from out of your lap and pick it up and just straighten them up. You don't need to like force it up or like turn the other way. You basically just let the rear end do what it's gonna do, because the angular momentum from the rear wheel spinning is gonna bring that rear end back. So it's basically all about getting that front end upright and straight and aimed perfectly straight for the landing. Sounds a lot easier than it is. It takes a lot of practice and a lot of timing to kind of get that in sync with the rear wheel coming around, because if you do it too fast, the rear wheel will come back too fast and you'll double whip and land sideways. So it takes a lot of practice to time it to get it nice and smooth, but it's a very simple motion. You're just picking the bars back up. It's nothing crazy like you see some of these riders do where they're throwing the bars around or whatever. All you have to do, pick the bars up out of your lap essentially and straighten the front end out.
Okay, now one other thing I did kind of forget to mention is why you hear rev limiters during whips. What that's basically doing is trying to get that rear wheel to spin as fast as humanly possible. Now it's different in gas bikes versus electric, obviously, because I don't really have a limiter. The limit is as fast as that rear wheel will spin in the horsepower setting that I have. Versus on a 450, if you're in second or third gear, you're only gonna spin as fast as second or third gear allows, which won't allow for as big of a whip as these because the rear wheel's not spinning as fast. But I figured I'd throw that in here because the timing of the revving plays a pretty decent factor in how fast or how slow your whip is gonna be. That's why the bigger the whip, the more rev limiter you hear. Or on this, if you pay attention, the super big ramp whips, I'm wide open the entire time because I'm trying as hard as I possibly can to get that bike around. On dirt, I don't really have to rev these as much, so it's not as big of a problem. But if you guys pay attention in just the raw audio of this, you can kind of tell where I'm timing it. And I try to time it right when I'm kicking the legs out and pulling these bars back. I'm timing it so I can get the revs in sync with the kicking of the legs, and that'll kind of throw the rear end even farther out. But as you guys can tell, I'm not doing anything crazy to bring it back. The momentum from the rear wheel spinning, kind of starting the rotation off of the lip, basically makes the rear end of the bike want to come back by itself. Obviously, you're steering the front of the bike with the handlebars. It's not like the bars will just come back by itself. So you gotta, like I said, you gotta pick them up and point it to where you're gonna land. As long as you're doing that and your rear end isn't, you know, way out back still or double whipping back the other way because you did it too soon, you're gonna land pretty straight on almost every time. And I say almost because sometimes you can mistime it or things happen, but once you get really good at timing it, it's basically the same, no pun intended, as riding a bike. You just know how to do it.
Okay, so that's basically a 4-step tutorial on how to do like a basic moto whip. As you guys could tell in that last one, I overjumped it just a little bit and kind of mistimed bringing the bars back up straight, which ended up resulting in kind of like a little double whip, as you guys can tell. So the more you do it, the more used to the timing of the jump and the timing of, you know, kicking the legs out and bringing the thing back, it all becomes a little bit more natural and you start to kind of learn the timing of everything and kind of getting everything in sync. Okay, so now that we've got the basic moto whip down, you're probably going to want to start throwing a little bit of style into it, right? So we'll take you through a couple different variations of what I do and how I do them. And for a couple of them, I use my foot hook, and a couple of them I don't need to. And the foot hook is useful for hooking your foot underneath it, basically using it as a fake shifter, or if you're on a combustion bike, you have that shifter there, obviously. But it'll be a little bit different for, you know, the two bikes because you don't have the risk of hitting neutral on this, but you have the risk of hitting neutral or missing a shift on the 450.
Okay, so once we've graduated from just the standard, you know, moto whip and you're looking to add a little bit of style, whether you're on a 450 or you're on a Stark, this is what I tend to do. I like to use my custom foot hook here, and I'll link this down in the description in case you guys are interested in checking it out. What I do is I'm gonna go up the jump face, but before, like once I land off of this setup jump here, I'm gonna go up the jump face with my foot hooked underneath it like this. And on a combustion bike, what you can do is you can shift up and hold it, or you can, it's a little risky doing this too, but you can place it underneath the shifter, and once you go up in the air, you can shift up and hold it. Either or, I would probably say shift up and hold it before you're going up the jump. It's more of what you're comfortable with. This is more of an advanced thing on a combustion bike versus this. But I'll give you guys a visual of, you know, how I stay connected to the bike while I'm dropping a leg or, you know, dropping an arm, because it's a little bit different than just doing the standard moto whip if you're trying to add a little bit of style to it. Okay, we'll give you another visual here. But this being hooked in allows you to have a lot more control over the bike and control over what you're doing. Without, like, you know, you could do it without being hooked in, but you're not going to be able to really squeeze the bike and control it. So the bike's going to want to freely just float underneath you and you'll lose control of it. That's why, like, a lot of the whips I do, you'll see me have my toe hooked under.
So now you guys can kind of tell why I have this fake shifter or this foot hook on my bike, and why a lot of the other people that ride the Vargs, or, you know, even on 450s, they'll hook their feet under. Now you guys kind of understand why, and kind of understand like what it does and what it helps with. I also use it not only for dropping a leg or like dropping an arm or something, but for going my other way, my opposite way, I like to hook in just because I have that extra security and have the extra grip to the bike. I tend to hook in no matter what type of whip I'm doing. The other way, I always have it hooked in just so I can control that side of the bike a lot more. Now, there are, you know, people that have right side hooks or whatever, but it's more up to personal preference. Once you get to that level, you can kind of experiment with it. But I figured I'd just kind of throw that into this video and give you guys a little bit more knowledge onto how it helps with whips and how it helps with controlling the bike in all types of different scenarios. Whether it's a turn up, whether it's a seat bounce, whether it's a turn downs especially. But I'll get into that in another video. If you guys would like to see more tutorials on different style of whips, or if you want to see, you know, like a dirt whip versus a ramp whip, because they are a lot different. So if you guys would like to see videos like that, drop a comment down below. I'll be reading and responding to, you know, every comment that you guys have. I'd like to help you guys as much as possible, not just kind of, you know, sit here with this knowledge and basically not put it to use. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope this helps. If you guys would like to show off your whips, tag me in the comments on any social media. I like to see your guys' progress, and, you know, if I can help out, I'd love to. Anyways, thank you guys for watching, and we will catch you guys in the next video.